Hi, my name is Jen Rulon, and you may know me as Coach Jen. After knocking out 15 Ironman triathlons, I am an everyday, healthy human just like you. In this podcast, we will discuss how to metamorphosize into an everyday, healthy human through healthy physical habits and mindsets, as well as authentic living. Let's transform together in this journey called life and become the best, everyday, healthy human ever. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everyday Healthy Human podcast. My name is Jen Rulon, and you may know me as Coach Jen on the gram. Well, today I have a very special friend, mentor, amazing human being named Dai Manuel. Dai and I met on Twitter or X, but it was Twitter back then. And it was about a product he promoted. And I reached out to him and started talking to him about it. And then we just started following back and forth. And then, I don't know, Dai, then you became my business coach and then my business coach to a friend. And oh my God, like, where do we even begin? So welcome to the Everyday Healthy Human podcast, Dai.
Jen, you know what? I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. And I know you and I always have a tendency to just catch up at the most spontaneous of times, right? But gosh, I've just enjoyed watching your journey these last few years.
Thank you.
I know there's been some extreme highs, but there's also been some equally, very prominent lows, right? But to see how you navigate that with your resiliency and that athletic attitude, right? That only a 15-time Ironman athlete can have. But it's wonderful to just see you leading by example, modeling and mentoring us all just through not only the content, but now this podcast too. And that's why when you invited me to be here, I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, so, I know. I was like,
great.
Dai
Awesome.
needs to be on this podcast. So
thank you.
Tell everybody enough about me, because this is your platform now. Like I want to share your story because you've metamorphosized many times in your life, and you've inspired me to make some major changes. And I'm not going to get emotional yet because we're only 2 minutes in. So with that said, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Well, back in the day, if you asked me that question, I know my ego would have been, driving the comments, or what I would have responded. But it was quite a number of years ago. That was one of my more prominent transitions or metamorphoses, using your language. And, since then, everything shifted and everything changed. It was like one great question. And then, whoa, the last 14 years have been me trying to realize the answer to that question, which we can get into in a little bit. So there's a little planting a seed, a little teaser there for people to stay tuned. But first and foremost, I'm a father. I've got 2 young adult kids now. I mean, Jen, that feels so weird.
Crazy.
I know, right? It's like they're 18 and 20, 2 girls, both off at university. Very proud of them. But the last few months been transitioning my wife and I into empty nesters. And that's just a whole nother area that I wasn't prepared for. And, but I've been married, happily dating my wife for the last 23 years. And on top of that, just someone that really loves helping people develop a positive relationship with change, because change is just one of those things, it's rarely easy, but it's almost always worth it. And yet it is a given that it's going to happen whether we like it or not. So why not learn how to be a little bit more positive, or at least develop a healthier agency when it comes to us navigating our own changes in our lives, and so I do that both personally and professionally with people, whether it be life coaching, if people like that sort of generalized term, or business coaching or consultant. I just find that's really generic, and really what I'm helping people with is change for the better, change for the better.
Beautiful. That is you. I mean, but you have gone through, like I said, you've gone through many changes, and I guess the one question that I've been asked a lot for myself is the whole alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the stopping and how did you do it? Blah, blah, blah. Now that was a big, and I know you have a TEDx talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
So can you give everybody just a little brief snippet of that major change that gave you that aha moment that you needed to stop?
Well, I wish it came sooner. I think that's always sort of that regret when we look back. It's like, why couldn't I have made that change sooner? And I have to, just sort of give myself a little bit of grace and recognize, I wasn't ready for it. Otherwise I would have changed. I would have done it sooner if I was ready for it. And what I mean by that is just really, I ultimately came to a decision at 32 years old that I was going to choose the life that I've always dreamed of having, that I believed I was working towards. And in favoring that, I was going to say no to alcohol. So yes to my life, no to alcohol. And I realized those are two questions I had to answer that way. Now, answering it and then following up with actual actions, that is where most of us stumble, and I'll admit I've stumbled, and for me, alcohol was a wonderful way of escaping, avoiding, really. I mean, it was great avoidance, but it also for me, because at 17, 18 years old, I began to develop this idea that people preferred being with the guy that drinks, that version of me, over the person that I was when I wasn't drinking. And confirmation bias is alive and real. For those that aren't familiar with that, our subconscious, we say that we believe something. Our subconscious likes to help us validate it as often as it can. And
yes,
I was really good at proving the belief, that look, I went out last night, I drank, and look, there was people that gave me attention. I got invited to another party, made some new connections, even though I don't remember half of them. Right. It's just, and this was a thing that was modeled and mentored to me all through my 20s. When I look at my business relationships and what I was doing, it was just the normal, and that's the thing with alcohol. I think it's heavily normalized, but what's not normalized is the negative effects of alcohol. Even though we're aware of it, but we don't normalize the conversation, there's still a lot of stigma around it, which was the reason why I created the TEDx talk. I really wanted to talk about this idea of being vulnerable and how vulnerability is one of those stages, or I should say steps or actions that allows us to tap into change. Mm-hmm. Because change is really hard to do on our own, but yes, there's a difference between being on our own and being alone. And it's usually a choice. Mm-hmm. And it does require an action to bridge those. And for me, I was really good at delaying that. And long and short of it, there was one night, my wife and I had already been together for 10 years. I was 32 years old. We already had 2 daughters. They were both under the age of 6 at the time. And I don't know how I got home the night before, but I made it home somehow. And I woke up the next morning, and actually it was almost noon by the time I got out of bed. And I wasn't in bed, unfortunately. I was actually lying on the Berber carpet to the adjacent to the bed, and family was up. They were going about their work on the day, and my wife's tending to the kids. And I made my way to the kitchen, and my wife looked at me in a way that she never looked at me before. And as I always say, she's someone that sees the potential in me that even myself, I never saw in myself, but she had this ability to see something in me and support that to coming to the surface and the fruition, becoming my who I am, and that's the power of a really strong mentor or that person in our life that can help us navigate some of those hard parts. Right. And
sure.
I don't know, Jen, she looked at me in a way that I was afraid, there was a lot of fear there, and she sat me down, and one of the first things out of her mouth is, this is not normal anymore. This is not going to be our normal. And this is not going to be an environment that we raise our girls in. Let's talk about what it's going to look like to co-parent and where you may have to move to live. I was like, holy smokes, what? Because family is one of my values, always has been.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we don't honor our values, it creates a lot of this holes or gaps or chasms inside of us. And we tend to distract ourselves from acknowledging those, or we fill it with frivolous things that never actually fill the bottomless pit, whether that be gambling, sex, pornography, right? Alcohol, drugs. I mean, shopping to an extreme, right?
Shop, sure. 100%.
There's lots of ways we can distract ourselves. And for me, it was alcohol, and she asked me a question, and I'm giving you the short version of the story. She gave me a question, and the question was, Dai, are you being the type of man that you would want to marry your daughters? And Jen, that question changed everything. It literally changed everything, because I realized right then and there, what I was modeling to my girls, to Christy, my wife, to my friends, to my coworkers, to the company and the people that were in the company that I was a co-founder of. Like I was modeling that this is not only normal, this is okay. And I started to realize, if someone like me at that time, at 32 years of age, showed up on my doorstep wanting to get close to both my wife and my kids, I wouldn't let them across the threshold.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I was saying was okay every day, by doing what I was doing. So I made a decision right then and there. Some people call it a last ditch effort. Sure, call it what you will. But for once in my life, I decided to make a decision. And it was a decision I was not going to negotiate on.
Mm-hmm.
And my decision was to go 1 year without drinking. I know people are going to be like, well, 1 year, that's not a big of a deal. Come on. I'm like, you don't understand. From age 17 to 32, 15 years of my life, the longest I'd ever done is one sober January. Like alcohol was always there. And when you learn how to function really well with that crutch like that, it's very scary to imagine yourself navigating the world without the crutch. I realized I had a pretty bad limp, and it took me about 6 weeks into that I realized, holy smokes, this is hard. I need some help. And I found some help. And from there, within a few months, everything changed. And I've been on that path now for 14 years. It's been 14 years since I had a drink because a lifestyle emerged from that. It was like, just realized, I wanted to keep saying no to that distraction, that avoiding tactic, to say yes and lean into all the things that I'd always said I wanted and said were value to me and were really important. But now I was going to honor that by following up with immediate action and consistent and frequent, right? Like, I mean, again, show up at the gym one time, you're not fit. Okay. Like you say no to McDonald's one time, it doesn't mean that all your nutrition woes are now solved. Like it's right. You have to keep making the decision, keep asking the hard questions every day and honoring the answer, and it ain't easy. But I can tell you, holy smokes, it's worth it, really.
Right.
Really.
And kudos to Christy for seeing that and transitioning that thought process in your head, because sometimes for Christy to be as strong as she was to say that to you, man, like that's a powerful partner. So
thank you.
Kudos to your girlfriend.
She's pretty awesome. I count myself very grateful, and
I agree.
And lucky, that she stuck it out. She was willing to, she still saw that guy in me, right? The guy that she fell in love with. I think I had forgotten who that guy was. That's all.
And I think that's what happens is I think a lot of people will put a mask on, and whatever that might be, like we talked about, because they just sort of go into that robotic, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be doing this, this, and this. And then, and then once you take that mask off, you're like, wait a minute, I'm not happy. Like I can make a change. I can make a shift. And that's where a lot of people are afraid to take that leap. Talking about taking a leap, another big story for you is you were a company owner and you said, out of here, and started your own business. And then you guys moved to Bali. I mean, gosh, where do we even start?
Well, let me put it this way. When we start navigating changes, and I say we, it's not the royal we, but I'm talking about anybody that's sort of open to that itch. And sometimes I don't even refer to it as an itch. It's like, you get a splinter in your finger. It's annoying. It's not going to kill you. I mean, sure, it could get infected. It might get pussy. It might not look the prettiest. It might get really painful. But rarely will you die from a little splinter,
Right.
But we can navigate about our days pretty well with that little annoyance. Now, it's not going to be comfortable, but we can get to a place where it becomes normal. It just doesn't hurt bad enough to make a change, right? And I think if we think about certain aspects of our own lives, we probably are very tolerant, or we've just said, that's okay. Like we let ourselves down a little bit, right? Like we hold a certain standard for ourselves, but we're like, nah, as far as my family commitment, I mean, I'm a good dad. I'm a good dad. I'm doing X, Y, Z. Check, check, check. I dropped the kids out of school. I packed a lunch today. I'm a good dad, right? Like I'm doing the actions. But on the same note, it would be really easy for me to justify, I know there's a birthday party this day, but hey, I got a supplier in town. It's really important that I go to that dinner, and honestly, back then it was because I was looking forward to a night out drinking with the boys. And this is what I mean. Like there's these sort of hidden agendas at times, when it came to these, I would compromise with myself, right, to justify the actions. And I realized it was just all games I was playing with myself. And long and short of it, I had to get to a place where I was okay with starting afresh. And what I mean by this is I started to look at what my career path had led me down. I got into sales. I developed a real knack with selling fitness equipment. I mean, I loved doing it because I was like, wow, this is the first time I'm in a performance-based pay structure, meaning that I was earning commissions. And I remember when they were hiring me in my early 20s, I'm like, so you're telling me the more people I help get healthy by investing in the right product, you're going to pay me more? And they're like, yes. I'm like, sign me up.
Sign me up. And that's easy.
Yeah. And I loved it. And I excelled. Within a year, I was one of the top reps in Canada, and fortunately for me, I also attracted a wonderful mentor, and I was ready to be mentored. I was starving for mentorship, for coaching, for leadership in my life. Because I didn't really have a lot of strong male role models. So here I was meeting one of the co-founders of that other company, and 20 years my senior. And really I was looking at him as in early 20s. He was early 40s. I was like, wow, this is a guy who's got it together. He's got 2 young kids, beautiful home. He's got this great company he's a partner in. Wow. I want to be like that. Well, 17 years later, I after I went through this huge shift myself, and it was actually about 4 years before I exited out of the company. I went through that process at 32, gave up alcohol, started to make these changes because things started to come into focus. And I didn't actually exit out of the company. It wasn't quite 5 years later, but there was a kink in the armor back then when Christy asked me that question, because all of a sudden I said, okay, well, I'm going to say no to this. By saying no to that, I didn't realize how much resources would be freed up. And I'm not talking just money. Of course, I mean, I was amazed at how much more money we have on the month to month because I wasn't spending money on booze, or going out and partying and all that. But it was the time and the energy. And so I started doing a lot of things outside of work, things for myself, personal development for once in my life. I wasn't just professional development because it was always professional development. I would always say, I'm always developing myself professionally because it was all ego driven. I want to be seen as a dude. I want to make more money. I want to have a better title. I want to have more stuff. And that's what was driving me, but it never fulfilled me. And now I made these changes, moved away from alcohol, got back to the things that I actually valued. And I made those values non-negotiable. And I started to honor those: family, my fitness, my faith, my finances. And of course, ensuring that I'm having a lot of fun at the same time. Yes, there's 5 F's there if you were doing the counting. And I love alliteration, by the way. So that's what I started to do. And everything changed. And what happened was within a few years, and this is sort of the point to this little story here, is I started to think about, what do I really want for my life? As I'm nearing 40 years old, my kids are getting older. I'm getting older. I'm changing. I've been on this path of change. I'm seeing things differently. I'm seeing myself differently. What do I want for my life? What makes me feel fulfilled? What makes me feel happy and joyful? And I started saying, well, is this it? Is this path that I'm on as a co-founder of a company? We're scaling. We've just done 10 figures in a year. I'm like, wow, we're doing really well. This is amazing. This is what I've been working towards. And I started really thinking about it. I was actually chasing my business partner's life, not my own life. From early in 20s, I was under this impression that if I work hard enough, I'm going to be just like him. I'll have everything that he has, and that was the vision that I had, was his life, not my own. And it was a scary realization, because all of a sudden I started thinking, I'm like, well, I don't want that. Well, then what do I want? And I was like, well, I can tell you one thing, being on the path that I'm on here professionally, this career path, it doesn't feel like the right path for me anymore. And I know this scares the crap out of us all, especially if you've been in a career path for a long time. And I'm talking decades, right? We see people into the 40s and 50s, and you speak to this so well, Jen, because you've been someone that's metamorphosized into so many beautiful butterflies, through your own changes, and when you emerge from that chrysalis, you see the world differently,
You do.
And you can either avoid the new perspective and go back to your old ways, but I'll tell you, you'll always be thinking about it, and it will become this little earworm, like a song that gets stuck in your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
That idea of what could have been will take deep root. And it is a mind F, like it really messes with you.
Conversation we had before we even started. I said, sometimes that there's those moments that I question things. Like I'm like, oh my God, did I do the right thing? Should I have done that? But then when I look at my life as a whole, and just prime example, like here I am in Michigan, came up to visit family, mom takes a fall. I have the flexibility to live anywhere in the world and work from anywhere in the world.
Hell
and
yes.
And you get that, especially for you living in Bali. Like, if you are going through a change, and this is what I wanted to say, if you are going through a change, anybody, you're going to have those doubts. Oh my God, you're going to have those doubts. Even after you made the change, you're still going to have those doubts. They still come up. They still be like, hello, are you sure? Let me test you,
Yeah. It's spot on, Jen. And there's always going to be those little voices in your head that are going to make you question what you've decided to do. And I think this is where, an exercise by Tim Ferriss, he did a TED Talk long time ago, I think back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where he talked about this exercise called fear setting. This idea of just asking yourself, well, what's the worst that could happen if I do this? And I know it's like, there's going to be people, well, that's pretty doomsday, like you could die. I'm like, okay, yeah. But I mean, reality here, people, like what's real? What's truly the worst that could happen? And my wife and I, as we were discussing me exiting a 17-year career as well, we knew shortly after that she would leave her career. So this is sort of the path we were working towards. I was the first to go. I made that move first, quit, 17-year career. I was like, peace out. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do, but this won't be it anymore. And I've been working on a book and some other things. I started doing a lot more speaking and was doing a lot more stuff with my own brand online. But thankfully, I had that already on the go, never monetized, but I was doing it in a way to just help me feel more fulfilled because I could help a lot of people with this thing called social media. I create great content that helps people. Just a little shift in perspective might elevate their belief in themselves to make that first action, to work on that path, right? To change that they want. They've addressed, I want to make that change. They just were intimidated, right? And so this idea of fear setting was really good for my wife and I, because as we were talking about, well, we both leave our career. We leave that comfort we have of two incomes, and we were
scary,
making good money. So it was like, good. We could raise our kids. We could have a good lifestyle. It was very comfortable, but wasn't fulfilling. So it's like comfort or fulfillment. Oh, geez. Well, I'd rather be uncomfortable and feel way more fulfilled, So you take the risk. And we acknowledge, though, we're young. We're both very, very coachable. And we have some great skill sets that aren't easily replicated. So what's the worst that could happen? Well, we come back. We have friends and family that love us. They have spare bedrooms. They have couches. They have big backyards we can pitch a tent in. Okay. Like it's right. All good. We can come
You're
back.
In Canada.
Yeah, we're in Canada.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like the worst that could happen, we come back and we start over. We get careers and we do it again. That was honestly the worst that could happen. I mean, there's always the concern that you might walk out off the curb and get hit by a bus. I mean, that doesn't matter. I could be here working my career or I could be in Bali, Indonesia. I mean, it doesn't matter where I'm at.
Exactly. There might be a gunshot. Exactly. Hey, guess what? That could happen in Chicago and that could happen in Costa Rica, right. Whatever.
That's exactly right. And so, there's real fears, right? I get it.
Yeah.
But then there's also a lot of hyperbolized fears that we have. And I found that it's easy to let the brain and imagination hyperbolize things, make them seem worse than they are. So we can justify not taking action or not making the initial changes to lead into that, right? And I get it because I've been there lots of times. Yes. And so after that, my wife left her career. A few months after that, we pulled the kids out of school, gave away our stuff, packed up our SUV, any of the, sort of emotional things that we possess, we put into a storage unit, right. And we started traveling with no agenda, no direction other than we're going south, being in Canada, January. It makes sense to want to go south. Trust me. Okay. Right. So we went south and it started a 5-year journey, of us traveling all over the place. And then eventually we ended up in Bali, Indonesia, where we stayed for 2.5 years before moving back to Canada so my kids could finish high school in Vancouver. And hell of a journey. There's lots of ups and downs on that journey. There's times where we're like, how are we going to pay for something tonight? Like there was a lot of stress at times, but we were together. We were realizing a vision and a dream that we had. And we knew, worst case scenario, there's always somebody we could call to help us out, And so we just adventured. We did. We learned. We grew. We experienced a lot as a family for those 5 years. And I wouldn't trade those for anything, not for a single thing. And but all because my wife asked me that question at 32 years old. Like had she not asked me that question, I can honestly say, Jen, you and I probably would have never met. We wouldn't have had this conversation today. I'd be in a very different place. So it's amazing what happens. You get asked by the right question at the right times. It's going to open up the right perspective, which might open up the opportunity to take the right action to create that right result, right? So you just never know what happens when you get a good question asked of you.
I like that.
Yeah.
Even the Ted Ferriss question, yes. I think that's a great question. I mean, a lot, like it's an ongoing joke with my team for the Rulon racing team. Cause like they'll sit there and be like, oh my God, I just did this long bike and long run, blah, blah, blah. And then I within seconds, somebody's like, but did you die?
Yeah.
Like the gift or whatever, and it's true. Like you sit there and you're like, but you made it through it. Like what a great way to like level up. You got through that. So then, okay, what's next? Oh, guess what? The race. Here I am at my Ironman, whatever that might be, Well, oh my God, you and I could probably talk forever.
We'll have a follow-up. I know we will.
We will.
Get you on my podcast, which is coming. So I'm putting it on the record right now. So
okay.
That's where we're going to have part 2 to this.
Yes, I think that's a fantastic idea. So where can my followers find you?
Well, listen, I'm a social dude, all right? And I'm active on social media, but most active on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So I always say, if you can spell my name, you can find me pretty easily because SEO loves my name. I'm the only one with it. And I have a website, daimanuel.com, which is always easy to sort of get information. And I've got 1,800 articles I published over the last 15 years of blogging, all geared around this idea of change. And I just invite people, start your journey there, type in something that you're interested in, see what comes up. And then if you reach out to me, ask a question. Let me know what you're working on right now, and I love having conversation, meeting new people that are, I guess, on that journey of change. They're excited, they're afraid, they're eager, to realize that transformation. And I'll tell you, it's a lot more fun being on that journey when you got other people you can connect with and talk with that are also enduring something similar. Because there's going to be really crappy days. I mean, Jen, you can speak to this just as well as I can.
Good Lord, yeah.
But I'll tell you, my crappy day now is better than the crappy day I had before. Okay, so perspective-wise, it's I enjoy it a lot more now on those crappy days than what I used to have to deal with.
Yes. Are you still doing men's?
Yeah, just about to get it started again. Just about to start it again. Yeah, we've got some online groups that will be starting up again, and but before that, I'm going to be starting an in-person event again. It's been a bit of a start-stop based on pandemic and a few other issues that have popped over the few years, but there has been an online group that's been meeting regularly on Monday nights, Mentorship Mondays. Love it.
I'll put all the links in the show notes, y'all.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
We're transitioning to mentorship meetups. Ooh. So it'll be meetups for men, whether online, offline. It's sort of a rebrand of that. But if there's men out there that are looking to connect with other great men, please reach out to me. I'll have details on how you can participate. And cool part is there's no cost to it. And I know my business coach is like, what are you doing?
Just like me starting this podcast. Like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Oh, what are you doing? Well, this is, again, I get fulfillment. So being completely selfish. I am. It's not a selfless act because I get a lot of value from doing this, So when I get those messages from people saying, you know what, I accomplished something today I never thought I could. And when you get those messages, it's like, oh man, why would I not be doing this anymore? And I see that in you, Jen. I mean, every day I read some of the comments on the posts on Instagram. I see what you're sharing. I'm like, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you, but also I feel very grateful to count you a friend.
I agree. It was all that.
Oh, full disclosure, Jen, you were the first person that got me into coaching.
I remember we had this conversation because I asked if you did any business coaching. Right.
And at the time I wasn't. I mean, I had some people I was mentoring, but just sort of the occasional conversation here and there. But then you asked very specifically what kind of sport you're looking for. And I was like, this is something I really do want to do. And okay, let's figure it out. So I have to thank you.
Well, thank you.
Because had you not asked those questions and us engaged that way, I don't know if I'd be working in the capacity that I am today. So I have you to thank for that. So thank you.
Well, thank you for really, gosh, I don't even know, like you've helped my brand and my business over the years. And I know we've bounced in and out, over life and everything, but we always come back together, I swear, and just like picked up like we left off from the last time I talked to you and whatever day that was. I still remember it was December 2020. I was in Costa Rica, and that was the last photo that I have of us. I screenshot it.
No way. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I remember when you made that move, it was just like, holy, she's doing it.
It was 2020. That's right. Cause I moved in December, 2021. All right. God. Last famous question. For those followers that are looking for that change, are transformating into their own beautiful butterfly. Is that even a word?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Let's make it up. What one piece of advice would you give them to start their journey?
There's 3 questions I invite you to think about and really introspect on. Like spend some time really thinking about these questions. And the first question is, can I do it? It being whatever the change is. You then follow it up. Once you haven't answered that, then you follow it up with question 2. If I do this, will it work? Mm-hmm. And then finally, question 3, is it worth it? And, if we're talking about something fairly general, it works, but I'm going to ask you to look in the mirror and say, am I worth it? Because these 3 questions are going to shine a big spotlight into certain areas you may have been avoiding. And I'll tell you, unearthing that is going to be the first step towards realizing the changes that you want to make. And so that would be what my invitation would be to anybody looking to start is work through, journal, reflect, think on those 3 questions. Because once you have the clarity, your confidence goes up. When you feel more confident, you take more decisive action. And guess what? You put things off much less procrastinating.
Yes.
So seek clarity and action clarity and confidence, and the actions will follow.
Yeah. And get out of your own damn way.
Hell yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. I think that is an incredible way to end. Dai, I appreciate your friendship. Tell Christy and the girls hello. Give them all my love and keep some for yourself as well.
Oh, thanks, Jen. Much love to you as well. And looking forward to our next conversation.
Agreed. On your podcast.
Hell yeah.
Y'all, if you are loving the Everyday Healthy Human podcast, you know what to do. Share, give me that 5-star rating, because you know what I say with a combination of Costa Rica and Texas? Pura vida, y'all. Bye.